want to start our next chapter. Okay, so we're going to move into chapter 11. Chapter 11 is on area. Okay, so area of different two-dimensional shapes. So today we're going to go over the area of parallelograms and triangles. So you may have seen these formulas before, but we still want to re-go over them. Okay, so first one we're going to go over is area of a parallelogram. Okay, so the formula for that, your area is going to be equal to the base times the height. Okay, so your base length times your height length. Now, the base is a parallel side. Okay, so the base is a parallel side. The height is the perpendicular distance between parallel sides. Okay, so again, this symbol right here means perpendicular. So if you forgot, I would write that out instead of using the symbol. All right, so we are going to do some example problems here. So in numbers 1 and 2, we want to find both the area and the perimeter of the parallelogram. Okay, so we want to find both. So number 1, to find the area, first I need to locate what my height is. So that's what I always look for first. So again, the height is that perpendicular distance between your two parallel sides. So in this first picture here, my height would be this dashed line right here, since it's perpendicular between those two parallel sides. Now, in my picture, I'm not given the height. Okay, it doesn't tell me how long it is. So I'm going to need to find out how long that height is. How could I do that given this picture here? Alexis? You can use the Pythagorean theorem. You have a right triangle formed, and you have two sides of that right triangle. Okay, now 17 is going to be your C value in that Pythagorean theorem, and H and 8 are A and B. So I would have 8 squared plus H squared equals 17 squared. Okay, 8 squared is 64. 17 squared is 289. Subtract 64 from both sides of your equation. H squared will be equal to 225. Take the square root of both sides. And our height will be equal to 15. Okay, so now we have the height. What's the base? Okay, the base is where that perpendicular hits that side. So how long is our base? It's 21. Okay, if this is a parallelogram, your opposite sides are congruent to each other. Okay, so this entire length also has to be 21 centimeters. Okay, so since it's a parallelogram, that side also has to be 21. So I can find the area since I have both the base and the height now. So I just have to multiply our base, which is 21, times our height, which is 15. And I got 315 centimeters, and it will be centimeters squared because you're multiplying two together. Okay, so the area is 315 centimeters squared. Okay, the next part I need to do is find the perimeter. Okay, so I did need to find the perimeter of this parallelogram. Well, I have this side, and this side. What's this length? 17. Again, your opposite sides in a parallelogram are congruent. Okay, so to find the perimeter, I need to add up all four sides. So 17 plus 21 plus 17 plus 21. Since it is a parallelogram, you should be adding four sides together, not 3, not 5. Okay, so that'll be equal to 76 centimeters then. Okay, questions on number 1, how I found the area or how I found the perimeter. All right, you guys do number 2. Find both the area and the perimeter of that parallelogram. Did you unlock your phone?
I unlocked it. You have to unlock it. Oh. Yeah. Do you type in your number? No. And then it's the one with the 2 in it.
What? This what? No.
I swear.
All right, I'm going to go over number 2. So, which length is your height of this parallelogram? The height is what? 24. Okay, so my height is on the outside of my parallelogram. However, it's still that perpendicular distance between my two sides. So the height is 24. And then your base would be what? $23. Okay, our base is 23. So you're not taking that section that's on the outside of your parallelogram. Okay, you're finding the area of the shaded parallelogram. Okay, that means this length right here highlight it. That length would have to be your base. Okay? That 7 is not part of your parallelogram, so it can't be considered part of your base. So I have both my base and my height, so I can find the area right away. Take 23 times 24. And you should get 552 feet squared. Okay, then to find the perimeter, I have one side here is 23. That means its opposite side is 23. However, I'm missing this length right here. Okay, so I need to find that length. So again, I have this right triangle formed with my height, so I can use the Pythagorean theorem to solve for that side. So I would have 7 squared plus 24 squared is equal to x squared, since I'm trying to find that hypotenuse of that right triangle. Okay, so I have 49 plus 576 is equal to x squared. Okay, that is 625 is equal to x squared. Again, take the square root of both sides. And that x value will be 25. So that means this side of my parallelogram is 25 feet, meaning this side is also 25 feet. Okay, so now that I have all 4 sides of that parallelogram, I can find the perimeter. So we have 25 plus 23 plus 25 plus 23. Okay, and that should be 96 feet. Questions? You do have to be careful when you're given the height on the outside of that parallelogram so you can find that base. Okay, don't add on that extra piece if it's on the outside. You're just looking at that shaded parallelogram. All right. Next examples, we're just finding the area of these two. Yes.
When you're looking at the shaded pieces, is that the same for the triangles?
Yes. For the next 2 examples, we're just finding the area. In number 3, we are not given this height here. Okay, so again, height is that perpendicular distance between your parallel sides, and I don't have that. However, I can find that height because I have this right triangle formed right here, and I know it's a 45, 45, 90 right triangle. So if it's a 45, 45, 90 right triangle, what do you know about your 2 legs? They're equal to each other. So since one of my legs is 9 yards, the other leg has to be 9 yards. So our height is going to be 9. Okay, so I have a height of 9. What's the base length? 17. Okay, so since this side is 17, this side also has to be 17. Okay, so I have both the base and the height, so I can find the area. Multiplying 17 times 9. That's 153 yards squared. Okay, and we don't need to find the perimeter for these ones. It just wanted us to find the area. All right, then number 4. Again, we have this special right triangle formed in our parallelogram with our height. Okay, we're not given that height again. But we are given this side of this special right triangle. Now this one is a 30, 60, 90 right triangle. And this is the short side. And I need to find the long side. Okay, so we need to find the long side, and I'm given the short side. So what is our long side equal to? The square root of 3 times the short side. And what's the short side? 12. So h will be equal to 12 times the square root of 3. Okay, so we have our height. What's our base? 32. Okay, again, opposite sides are congruent. So we can find our area then. Take our base, which is 32, multiply by our height of 12 times the square root of 3. Anybody do that on their calculator?
Nope.
We get 665.1. Questions on parallelograms? Just base times height. Opposite sides again are congruent to each other. Okay? Alright, then we're going to move on to triangles. Okay, so the formula for area of a triangle is equal to base times height divided by 2, or you also hear it as 1/2 base times height. Okay, same thing. So again, you need that base and the height, and you just need to take half of it. So in a triangle, the base is any side. The height, then, is the perpendicular length to the base that you choose. So to that base. Okay, so it has to be perpendicular to the base. So what I do for problems is first find the height, so then I can find the base of that triangle. Okay, so in our example problems at the bottom, again, we're finding both the perimeter and the area of each triangle. Okay, so number 5, again, my first step that I do is locate the height of the triangle. So I locate that perpendicular distance. Okay, so in this case, this would be my height. That 30 inches is the height. Okay, then I can locate the base because the height has to be perpendicular to the base of that triangle. So that doesn't mean that entire side. That means just the shaded part of that side. Okay, so this would be 19. Okay, so my base is going to be 19 for this triangle. So I have both the base and the height, so I can find the area right away. So again, we take base times height and divide by 2. So our base is 19 times our height is 30 divided by 2. That's 285 inches squared. Okay, next we also had to find the perimeter, and it's the perimeter of the shaded triangle. So don't include the dashed lines on the outside. The dashed lines are dashed because they're not part of that triangle. Okay, so I have a side of 19, a side of 41, and I'm missing this side right here. Okay, so I need to find that side. Well, if I look at that non-shaded triangle, it is a right triangle. So again, I can use the Pythagorean theorem to solve for that side. So I would have 27 squared plus 30 squared is equal to x squared since I'm solving for that hypotenuse. Okay, 27 squared is 729. 30 squared is 900. Add those together, I get 1,629. Take the square root of both sides. You do get a decimal, and I'm just going to round to the 10th, to 40.4. Okay, so this last side of my triangle is 40.4. So finding that perimeter, again, I just need to add up all three sides of just the shaded triangle. Okay, so we have 19 plus 41 plus 40.4. And that's 100.4 inches. Okay, questions? All right, do number 6. Problem 6.
No. This is shaded triangle.
It's on the base.
Yeah.
So you don't know.
No, that's not right.
Okay, now I have a question. Why do you take the area of this triangle and this little? You don't. Then you do. 25 times 24. This is 25 though. Doesn't make any sense.
Take 24 times 23.
No, by 24 though, this is 25.
Because this isn't a height. The height has to be perpendicular. We have to do 24. So like this 24 would also be right here.
So then don't you miss this stuff?
No, because it's not the perimeter. 25 is included in the perimeter. Your height just has to be the perpendicular distance to the base of your parallelogram. Same thing in triangles. It has to be perpendicular.
You don't know the height.
You don't.
That's what you're right. I just, okay, it's fine.
Alright, so for the sake of time, I know some of you are still working, that's okay. I'm just going to kind of go through explaining this one real quick here. So for number 6, again, I locate the height first, okay? Locate the height first. It has to be perpendicular. So you should be looking for that 90-degree angle formed. So my height in this triangle would be this one right here. Okay, it's perpendicular right there. Okay, that means my base has to be 29 centimeters. So your height has to be perpendicular to that base, and you only include the part that's part of the shaded triangle. Well, I'm still missing this height right here. But again, I have this right triangle formed on the outside, so you can use the Pythagorean theorem. So I would do 6 squared plus h squared equals 13 squared. Okay, once you solve for h, the height should be 11.5. Okay, so now I have the height and the base. So to find the area, I would take 29 times 11.5 and divide it by 2. And that is 166.75. Is that what you got? Okay, then to find the perimeter, you're still missing this length right here of that shaded triangle. But again, this is also a right triangle, and you have 2 of those sides. So you can use the Pythagorean theorem again to solve for that final side there. So I would have 11.5 squared plus 29 squared is equal to x squared. Okay, and x would be about 31.2. Okay, so the perimeter, I would add 11.5 plus 31.2 plus 29. So all 3 sides of that shaded triangle, and that is 71.7 centimeters. Okay, so for that problem, you did have to use the Pythagorean theorem twice. Okay, questions? All right, I'm going to skip number 7. If you did number 7, it's still just finding the perimeter and then the area. But for the sake of time, I did want to get to number 8 and number 9 for sure here. So, what? Depends. So number 8 says the height of a triangle is 5 centimeters more than its base, and the area of the triangle is 52 square centimeters. We want to find both the base and the height. So in this case, you're given the area, and you have to find the base and the height. Well, when it says the height, okay, is 5 centimeters more than the base, okay, that means you have to add 5 onto the base to get the height. So they did draw the triangle out to the right, on the right here, okay? So they labeled the base as B. That means you'd have to label your height, that perpendicular distance, as B plus 5, okay, because it's 5 more than the base. Okay, and I believe you have a problem like this on your assignment. So to set this problem up, we still are just using our area formula. It's equal to base times height divided by 2. And we're just plugging in what we know. So I was given the area is 52 square centimeters. So I would plug in 52 for the area, which is A. Okay, then I have my base. Base is just B times the height is B plus 5. And that's divided by 2. Okay, so you're just plugging in what you know. From here, I'm going to multiply both sides by 2 so I can cancel out that denominator there. Okay, so that's 104 is equal to distribute your b to both terms inside the parentheses, right? So distribute, so we would have b squared plus 5b. Now again, if I have a b squared and a b within a problem, it is quadratic. That means you need to get everything on one side of your equation and you need to factor. Okay, so I would subtract 104. So I have 0 is equal to b squared plus 5b minus 104. So this one does factor. Again, if you don't want to factor, again, you can use the quadratic formula if you remember what it is. Okay, but to factor this one, use an x. What multiplies to negative 104 and adds to 5? The ones on your assignment aren't this big of a number. They're a little bit easier to figure out. This one is 13 and negative 8. Okay, so I can multiply 13 times negative 8 to get 104, or negative 104, and I can add them together to get positive 5. Okay, so then this will factor into x plus 13, or b, that's a b, and b minus 8. And you want to set both of those quantities equal to 0. So b plus 13 equals 0, and b minus 8 equals 0. So on the left here, b will equal negative 13. On the right, b will equal 8. So since this is negative and I'm talking about a length of the base, okay, we won't use b is equal to negative 13. So our base is equal to 8 centimeters. And our height would be equal to what? Oops. Yeah. $13. Okay, so I just plug in 8 for b. 8 plus 5 is 13. Okay, so I think you have 2 on your assignment that you have to factor. They're not weird numbers like this one. Okay, you should be able to factor those ones. All right, last one I'm going to go through is number 9. So in number 9, we want to find the value of x. And in this case, we're given A equals 357 inches squared. That's the area. So again, you're given the area, and you have to solve for one of the sides. Well, the side I'm solving for is the height, because that's where x is labeled. That's that perpendicular distance to the base. And I'm also given the base is 34. So again, just using our area formula, base times height divided by 2. Plug in 357 for A. Plug in our base. Our base is 34. Plug in our height. Our height is labeled as x. And divide it by 2. Okay, from here I just have to solve for x. So I'll multiply both sides by 2 first. So it cancels out on the right. And I have 714 is equal to 34x. Divide both sides by 34. To get x is 21 inches. Questions? Okay, when you are factoring, again, make sure you see what multiplies to that last term. Okay, so what 2 numbers multiply to the last term, and also add to the middle term. Okay, multiply to the last term, add to the middle term.